out about the fire, we were eating dinner, my husband and I were. I got a phone call from a friend, and so we thought, well, we better go check it out, see what's happening. My initial reaction to the phone call was, well, this is interesting, something exciting to do in the middle of winter, and I'm sure it's not a big deal.
I think the first report of the fire was about 5:45, and like I said, the Dayton Fire Department was here in about 4 or 5 minutes. There were fire departments from all the surrounding counties, from North Georgia, probably 10 to 12. Fire departments were here, over 100 firefighters.
You didn't know how to cope with it. You didn't know what was going to happen. There was disbelief. I mean, you could just see people's eyes just glazed over, the flames just reflecting in their eyes. But everybody stood together in small groups all over the triangle, and there was no hysteria about it or anything. It was quiet. You could hear the firefighters yelling at each other and radios squawking and all that sort of stuff.
One of our first reactions was, why would somebody do this, We assumed that it was arson, and we probably shouldn't have.
Even more so than it is now, Mercer was where classes were. I mean, all of them.
The scariest part was just the unknown of what was going to happen next. I think people were concerned about the school shutting down, about the school ultimately dying, having to close its doors forever.
Right, what do we do now? Because we have students here, we have faculty and staff here, we have the lion's share of our property being destroyed by fire. So what are we going to do now to overcome this adversity? How are we going to do it? We began to pray to see what the Lord was going to do. And it was fascinating to watch his plan unfold.
The roof collapsed into the stairwell rather than landing on the second floor. It fell all the way through to the basement. There was no way for the fire then to spread from the third to the second floor. Then they were able to extinguish the flames on the third floor and put the fire out.
The third floor was almost completely destroyed, and the third floor of the administration building held a lot of museum specimens in the hallway. There was one long hallway that had a lot of glass cases. They had also just recently moved photos of all of the past presidents of the college up to the third floor of the library area, and those were all destroyed. There was a computer lab on the third floor of the library. All of our special collections were up there as well.
It was really a galvanizing event. Dr. Brown pretty much told us that, you can knock us down, but we'll get back up kind of thing.
It was a very out of the ashes experience. I remember being pumped up and telling a friend, if they need me to, I'm gonna work here for free to help repair the college. I mean, that was a real emotional high.
There was a real let's get this done spirit. And I recall within the week after the fire marshal said the building was okay to go into, they recruited a lot of us to go in and start taking things out. And I would say the majority of the student body was there ready to help just get things done.
Tim Hostetler and the others started to gather together and began immediately to make plans for where to go and what to do and how to put together a schedule that would enable us to stay in business. It was just virtually hours later we actually started the process of cleaning things, of putting up temporary facilities. IT had already started working on Brock Hall to turn it into what came to be known as our command center. We actually had students come to our door and hand us syllabi from our classes because they did not want us to get behind.
The students took it in stride about the fact that we were going to have to start doing makeshift classrooms. And there was a lot of scrambling by the administration to figure out where to put us all. I believe we met many classes met in Rudd, and I think we even met in some of the dorm common areas for class.
I remember just a sense of resiliency coming from the faculty. Classes were canceled for a day or two, and then I remember having class in the bottom of Woodley, in the basement of Woodley Ewing. I remember having class in the locker room in the gym.
They brought in trailers for us that were all parked in the lower level of Red parking lot, and those trailers became administrative offices and our classrooms.
My office was actually the lab of the medical unit that had been at the '96 Olympics in Atlanta.
The school had, as a whole, had talked about other schools that this kind of thing had happened to and how they'd shut down for a week or 2 weeks.
We only lost a day of classes. The plan to continue started that night, and 2 days later we were back in business.
For a long time, most of the people in Dayton didn't really have a lot to do with the college, to our discredit, I think, because what we had going on here was wonderful still, but, you know, call it the bubble.
Bryan was an institution that the city was proud of, but not particularly closely connected to.
When the time came to begin the rebuilding process, then the community really stepped forward. The churches began to offer their buildings for classrooms. They began to offer to fix meals, to take care of things, to help out any way they could.
The night of the fire, the mayor was on the Triangle, and he offered just carte blanche to Dr. Brown, whatever you need, we're going to be there for you.
We got telegrams and emails from different institutions volunteering resources to replace some of the things that we left.
There were far more offers of assistance than Bryan was ever able to really take advantage of. And that was very gratifying, I think, for the Bryan family to see that the college was truly appreciated.
When I first came to Bryan in 1998, I loved it. But looking back, it was not luxurious by any means. The cafeteria was very small. The library was very small. Bryan grew fairly quickly in the next couple of years. So I think it was what would have taken many years for the school to grow was compacted into a few years.
While we had a 20-year plan for the campus, because of the fire, that 20-year plan was expedited and we got it completed in just about 18 months.
The library was built after the fire. Mercer was rebuilt and vastly improved.
We also were able to change the interior dynamics of the campus in that you no longer have to cross the street except for one time going to chapel. And we used to have a lot of interior roads around the Triangle, and I still find myself walking out of Mercer Hall and looking both ways to see if anyone's coming.
The night of the fire, we went through that transition from helplessness and hopelessness to hopeful. This was not so much about Bryan College. It wasn't about a bad thing happening to Bryan College or what Bryan College was going to do for the future, but this was about God.
And of course, the things that immediately run through your mind, believer, non-believer, whatever, were, you know, this problem of evil.
This was about God taking a terrible situation and going to show himself mighty.
The fire at the time seemed like a tragedy, and it seemed like an overwhelming event that was going to be so difficult for us to climb out of.
Bryan College at its core was not shaken. We experienced a loss, but it wasn't insurmountable. I think we're just even more grateful for what we have now. And we realize that there are things that, while they were important, they weren't of ultimate importance.
The school was started during the Depression, so it shouldn't have survived anyway. We tried to burn it down, and that didn't work either. And now that the economy's in the tank, we're building 2 new dorms. So apparently the Lord has something in store for us. And part of it is just saying, okay, we can do this. Not only can we do it, but we can do it well.